morning rather. With that, we are moving into our open public meeting. And I would ask that we start out with the Academic, Student, and Technology Committee. Ms. Shelley. Ms. Shelley, are you there? She may have stepped away. With that.
No, I'm here. I apologize. I was
okay.
on mute. I was
Okay.
on mute. I'm going to call on Lisa.
Actually, Lisa, I will. I'm going to ask if Mr. Steen would please give us the update on Workday.
Sure. Let me see. Is Christian in the room yet? I saw Rob. Is Christian here yet?
I don't know.
He might not be. That's all right. I can probably give an update here. All right. So just to give a sort of an overview, it's been a little while since we chatted about this last, just an overview of kind of where we're at quickly. We, as you all know, we launched the first phase of things, the ERP, HR, finance, payroll stuff back in the very end of December. We've been live ever since. Things have been reasonably stable. We have been operating as a college, so that's going pretty well. Where we're at right now, we sort of got a few things going on. And Damon, you can just hold the slides there for a second. We have a couple things going on. First of all, we're working on the ERP phase 2 stuff. The primary things going on there right now is that we're building out the recruiting piece. So this is how people apply for jobs, how we track applicants, stuff like that, as well as a business assets tracking system. So we're in the process of doing both of those. We're teeing up to be working on a new budget planning module, and we're teeing up to do an analytics project as well. So those are the things going on that all relate to the ERP, the HR, finance, payroll portion of things. In tandem with that, what we're also doing is beginning all the prep work to line ourselves up for implementing student in the fall. So we're beginning our discussions, our planning sessions with the implementer, a company named Alchemy, actually later this month. And then there'll be a little bit of a break, and then first thing in October, that'll ramp up. So I'm not going to talk too much about student here today because there's not, we're still planning that out basically. But when we return in the fall and have our next check-in meeting, I imagine that'll be the focal point of things. So Damon, if you want to just click through this a little bit here. So this is what we're doing right now with the phase 2 stuff for, again, this is business assets and recruiting, job tracking, applicant tracking, stuff like that. Fairly short, fairly concise project. We have the HR folks are really working on the recruiting piece. Dave Jordan and some of his finance folks are really working on the business assets piece. Both of these would be a pretty big step forward for us. A new way for people to apply to work at the college, as well as a new way for us to be tracking our fixed assets kind of information, which Dave is very excited about. We did some sessions yesterday, and in his words, he was very much geeking out over the system. So it should be good for us. You can keep clicking here. The general timeline here, it's very similar to the full project that we just went through, except it's much shorter, right? They have a nice methodology. We've really been very lucky to work with these guys in terms of their formal project methodology. I think we've learned a lot from that. So there's a plan phase, an architect phase, a configure and prototype phase, a testing phase, and then you deploy the whole thing and then you support it. And that's the exact same way that we handled the larger implementation last year. It's just in a much more abbreviated timeline. So right now we are in the middle, somewhere in between the configure and prototype phase and the testing phase. It's kind of just, we're depending on, which group you're talking about, we're right in there. Yesterday, actually, we just went through the initial set of what are called the customer confirmation sessions, where we demo some of the functionality to our own internal folks to make sure that we sort of understand what the configuration looks like, that things are going in the right direction. Those went quite well. You can keep clicking through, Damon. these are just the full project updates. There's a lot of detail in here. In case you're curious, you know, you can always take a look at the sort of the recruiting scope. There's really a lot of things in scope for this, but overall, what we will have at the end of the day is a new way to bring in applicants, screen them, review them, let them apply. It's got all the nice new features like the ability to upload your resume. It pulls the whole thing apart and, you know, parses it all for you. It'll really be a modern, you know, a modern system with a good, you know, an applicant experience people will recognize. Next slide. And very similarly, oh, that's still a continue. You can skip this. And then just very similarly, there's a scope for our business assets as well. Really what this is going to help us do is it's going to help us get off a very old system that really only exists on a virtualized laptop, believe it or not. Goes way back. And this will bring everything into Workday so it becomes part of our purchasing flow, right? So as soon as someone is purchasing something that qualifies as a capital item that would depreciate, as part of that flow of purchasing it, it's assigned an asset tag and we begin to track it and depreciate it and the whole thing. It's all very seamless. So I can skip this. So as you can see, this is actually a little out of date. You can see the June 9th item there, customer confirmation sessions. We actually just did those yesterday. So we're actually a couple steps down on here. These slides are from, you know, we put these together last week sometime. So you can pass through this. Any questions on where we are just in terms of project status? After this, we then have a risk and budget presentation just to keep everyone up to speed on that as well. But that's what we're working on right now in terms of functionality.
Brent?
Yes.
And from your perspective, are you satisfied, maybe there's a better word, to where we are at this moment with regard to what you just displayed?
Yeah, we're right on timeline. We had, you know, the large timeline all planned out when we purchased the product, where we were going to go through the HR finance payroll, then implement some of these phase 2 items, then roll right into students. So we are exactly right on the timeline that we planned. We're very satisfied with the product that we're, you know, putting out. So yeah, absolutely.
In regard to what you just showed, your business scope and your recruiting scope, as this continues to go on month to month, year to year, is it any time within that interval, there's areas to make sure that the system is continually being updated?
The system so this is another reason that we purchased Workday. Another reason that we're very satisfied with the platform. We have no choice. The updates happen to us twice a year. So they have a schedule. There's one in the spring that actually we just went through in, I think it was March or April. So there was one that happens there, and there's one that happens in the fall, right around October. So twice a year, they give us a chance to test the updates. They put it in what's called a preview tenant. So we can test them, kick the tires, make sure we're not, you know, something's not going to break, or to the best of our knowledge, at least. And then they push the updates. We have no option. So we will always, 100% of the time, always be exactly up to date at the latest and greatest version of this platform.
Excellent. Thank you.
You got it. Any other questions?
Thank you.
I have a question. I guess raising hand is not working today. I would request that when you report to the board, we have a better or a more descriptive understanding of the status of the implementation. To suggest that the financial pieces is complete is, you know, a little misleading to us, I think, because complete to me means the end user is comfortable producing reports out of it. You talk about the assets now are just being in that part of that module, you know, so I just want a clear understanding where we're at. We know everybody's doing a lot of work and it's great work, but let's really be precise with where we are and not kind of suggest we're further than we really are.
Okay. So I've tried to do my best to keep everyone up to date. If there's something specific you'd like on the financial side, when I say financials are complete, it's a core financials module that was put in.
Exactly. And I think that's the reporting that should be made, is that the core financial module has been installed. And so we don't think, oh, everybody's going to be able to have the full functionality of Workday and produce reports, because we're not there yet. So that's why I'm saying when reporting the status on Workday, let's really be precise with what is complete and what isn't, because that just gives us a better understanding of where we're at.
Sure, yeah, and I think actually the next step of this presentation, Rob is going to go through actually the reporting piece as an item on his risk chart. So that's coming right up for you.
Yeah.
Here. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Brant, I see that there is a plethora of information that you can get from this program. Does the program also come with canned reports?
Yep.
Or that you can also customize reports? So a few months ago, I asked Steffi for some information on the arts department, and they had to be able to generate that information. If we were to give you 10 variables of information, you'd be able to customize that report, cull it out, and give it to us, or give it to Stephanie or the president?
Yeah, most likely. Now we're in a little bit of a just to, level set, we're in a little bit of a limbo in between period, because about half of our data, all the student facing information and course information, is living in our old system in Colleague until we get that part of Workday implemented. The financial information and HR information is living in Workday. So sometimes we have to kind of combine this information still. The short answer to your question is yes. If the data is in Workday, we can absolutely pull it out. We did have some resourcing issues in the beginning of the launch back in January, February, but we've since been able to hire up, and we now have our reporting resources that we need and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
And what do you anticipate the timeline being for importing all that information from the old system to the new system?
Well, the student implementation is going to be a 2-year project. So it begins in October and then it runs for 2 years. So it is full. Now there's checkpoints in there where a lot of the data will be in the system within, I think, a year to 14 months, but we're not fully live and fully operating until fall of 23.
So you're saying that both systems will be working concurrently for the next 2 years?
Correct. And your canned report question, yes, there's a whole lot of them. Actually, there's over 2,000 of them. The biggest thing is actually a matter of finding which one fits your needs best. But there's a ton of them.
Brad, would it be possible for those that are interested to sit in front of a computer for an hour to get a feel for this program, not to do operations on it, but just so we have a better understanding of what is going on here? Would that be possible?
Yeah, sure.
Great. I'd like to do that.
Okay. I can work with someone.
As long as he doesn't have edit capabilities. No offense.
Well, what we'll probably do is, we can run like a demo kind of thing. Like we can kind of walk you through, just show you, what it looks like, all that kind of stuff, what's there.
Any other questions for Brant? I'm sorry.
I would like to just a couple of comments or feedback to the conversation here. One is that, again, I have to say to Brant and the whole team, you all are doing huge work to carry this and implement it, and it's a multi-year, thing. So thank you for all of that. To Linda's point about the clarity, I think the way I interpret that is Brant is providing information about the product implementation, the installation, right? This is like building a new wing to a building, right? It's long-term, it's very technical, and Brant is telling us where we are on the construction of it. So to say that the building is up is one thing. To say that the people are in the building and using it to its maximum effect is a very different thing. So Brant, thank you for sharing all of that information. Linda, to your point, maybe what we need to get for the board more is some flavor as to how the user's experience is, right? As they are beginning to be able to use the information that's being put in place in the system, because that will really tell us as trustees whether this ERP system is doing what we want it to do. And we all need to recognize that this is a user experience that's going to grow and evolve over multiple years across this entire organization. And the last thing I'll say is, I think with regards to the demo, yeah, I would love to see the demo, but we all have to remember the maxim of, what is it? Eyes on, hands out, or eyes in, hands out.
Eyes on,
it's
hands
not our
off.
job. Yeah, it's like, I'd like to see it, but I'm not going to advise as to how it needs to be changed because that's not my job. That's it. Thank you.
I do think Carol, there is more to Brant's report, so.
Right. Brant, go ahead.
Yep. Damien, if you want to bring the second one up, and I'm going to turn it over to Rob to walk us through the risk portion of things, some of which I think might actually speak to a few of these items.
All right, give me 1 sec to find that, Brant. I have a ton of documents for this, and I didn't have this one queued up.
Fair enough. And then at the end of that, tail end of that, a short update on where the budget is for this project in comparison to the bond that we took out.
I'm not getting anything.
Yeah, we're just waiting. Damon's just fine in the presentation there.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
I thought I touched
So Rob,
something.
I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Can we go to the next slide, please? All right. So just a little level setting. For those that I haven't met, my name is Rob Cardelli. My job is to jump in and out at predefined intervals and look at this program through a very objective, independent lens. These are the areas that I focused on over the last 7 to 8 weeks. Project management, change management, the usability of the new system. How are the users interacting with the new technology? Is there any pushback? Do they need additional training? Deliberate focus on staffing. You had a lot of gaps, and we're going to talk about that later. Are you guys adopting the new business processes? This was not an IT project. Many of you have heard this for the last 3 years. This is not an IT project. This was truly a business transformation project. So we wanted to see, how are the users interacting? How are they doing their day jobs? Access to data and reports. I think that some of my commentary here will be relevant to some of you. Your support model. How are you responding to users' needs? And then what's coming? What's over the horizon? So we can go to the next slide. I like to start off with the good news. You guys have actually been able to hire some pretty talented individuals. For those that didn't know, over the last several months, you've been very lean. You've had some staffing shortages where I've been dinging the team and highlighting risks. And having those shortages put extra burden on your other staff. So there was a lot of burnout going on. You've done an excellent job. I still don't know where you found these people because it seems too good to be true. You found some very good talent that are going to be able to get up to speed relatively quickly. So that's outstanding news. The support model is actually working better than I would have expected, candidly. So kudos to the team, but also to your partner, Alchemy. Alchemy, for those that don't know, is the vendor that's going to help with the student implementation activities. They actually got involved early to help with some of the support and really just get to know you. So you're building that relationship there. That's actually working out very well. When there are issues, they're getting resolved relatively quickly. So far, so good on all of that. The user's comfort level with the platform is increasing. From 8 to 10 weeks ago, it's better now. So we're seeing that positive trend, which is what I was hoping to see. You are adopting the new functionality. People, when you first went live, they were crawling. Now they're up on their feet and they're walking. I don't think many of them are running yet. It's going to be a while, but they're definitely seeing the efficiencies of the platform and the investment. And you're starting to get ready for the student implementation. So there's a lot of prep work going on behind the scenes that is going to help prepare your institution for a cleaner, more effective implementation of student, which is the big, that's the big one. Next slide, please. So I try to do, red light, green light. Project management, everything's going well. Your team's very collaborative, not a lot of strife. So governance is green. I suspect that's going to stay green because your leadership team is fully involved. Change management, communication. The communication is improving. For those that remember, many months ago, I was this was not always the case. Communication's getting better. Team dynamics are good. The staffing review, this was red. This was a major concern for everybody. It's moving in the right direction. And as you'll see on my next slide, I believe within the next 8 to 10 weeks, you're going to be green with staffing unless something happens. So knock on wood. Support model, green. The evidence of your team using the processes efficiently, green. Training, role-based training, the creation of the user procedures. This was not always green. You're doing a much better job here. People are making sure their user procedures are well documented. There's some cross-training going on. Reporting is not green. I could have made this red 2 or 3 months ago. You did not have a team dedicated to designing and building the reports. This is one of the skills gaps that you were missing. This is one of the areas that you've been able to hire somebody for. So after go live, a lot of the reports, the data, the analytics that many of you, even the users would have expected to have had, what was not there. So there was some angst there. We are seeing evidence that the team is starting to learn the reporting tools. That vendor Alchemy that I mentioned earlier has stepped in to help the finance team, for instance, start getting some of the reports they need to do their day jobs. So that's moving in the right direction. Brant mentioned that there's a couple thousand reports. It takes time for your organization to know what the reports are, how to use them, how to interpret the data. So that's going to be a learning curve. But there is a plan to get everybody moving in that direction. And so far, the budget is tracking green. Next slide, please. And this is just the, you can actually tab it one more time. I think there's some other, I'm sorry, go back, please. So the resources that you've hired, once they get up to speed, and they're getting up to speed quicker than I think anybody would have expected because they were skilled. They already had the relevant knowledge needed for these jobs. You weren't having to train somebody that had never seen an ERP system. They're actually adding value immediately. Once they get up to speed, I think their staffing is going to be green. Now, I will say your team is still very tired. Make no mistake that they worked their tails off over the last several months, and then they've jumped right into this new wave of activities. So there is a deliberate effort to try to protect their sanity. So, one of the things that, I typically recommend is try to let people take, get out early Friday, longer weekends, just to decompress. Brant's doing a very good job with the rest of the team, keeping an eye on that. Once again, that's why your project management's green, because everybody knows what's going on. You're still lean though. You still have some open positions, but there is a plan in place to get them hired. Next slide, please. And then with reporting, like I said, this was red, it's yellow now. It's going to stay yellow, I suspect, for several more weeks because your organization needs to learn how to use a extremely robust platform. And then like Brant said, once you get the student data in, which is going to take a while, then you're going to be able to have arguably some of the best reporting in the industry, but you're going to have to grow into that. Next slide. And then, a couple other things Brian already mentioned. The HR finance has already started. A lot of the lessons learned from the first wave have been incorporated into these new releases to try to make sure we're doing better communication. We're being proactive on change management, that we're trying to get a head start on the testing so that the staff that are already busy have a little bit more runway to do the testing and then ultimately the training. Last slide, please. And then this is what I'll be looking at in the coming several weeks. I want your organization to do a formal deep dive on the lessons learned, because when you get into the student, it's going to be magnitude by 4 or 5x. Many more departments, a lot more people involved, a lot more politics involved. The implications of change are significant, and you got to do a lot of work with impact analysis. So making sure that you know what's coming, that all of the players are aligned for the student project, because October will be here before people know it. Trying to see what else, jump-starting the SIS project. There's some training materials that still have to be cleaned up. And then Brant and the team are still looking at hiring some additional players. Brant, anything I miss?
Can you say what the SIS project is, please?
That is your student information system. So that's the system that recruits students, allows them to register for classes, allows them to interact with faculty and do advising, allows them to pay their bills, allows them to apply for and accept financial aid, and everything else that goes in that. Tracking student success, tracking retention, predictive analytics to identify at-risk students, helping them matriculate through your program all the way into the workforce. So that's the big system, the student system.
That's some good stuff.
I was just going to say that sounds like it's going to be amazing when it's fully implemented.
Oh, Carol, don't tell me now. We talk alike. Okay.
Will we be able to access the numbers on this? Not the personal information on students, but the number of students going here or there.
Yes. Yes,
Yay.
you're gonna have access to data that today many people are tracking in Excel spreadsheets, on Post-it notes with an abacus maybe in a corner. All of that data is going to be put into one ecosystem for you to slice and dice it, for you to even do profitability analysis on programs, courses, schedules, so that you can proactively invest or divest from programs that are less attractive. That was one of the reasons you acquired this software.
Okay, and you'll show us how to do that?
The vendor that you hired is one of the best in the industry at helping colleges implement this system. They're actually the vendor that's working up the street from you at another community college where Brant and your leadership team already have tight relationships. So when I alluded to the lessons learned, you're getting those lessons learned from a very close cousin up the road.
Well, I'm going to need lots of help. I don't know about the rest of the trustees.
I anticipated, Betsy, if we want those numbers, we're just going to need to ask for a report. Am I correct?
Okay.
Yeah, again, just to remind, I mean, this piece of things was just the first part of this project. Like we said, the student project is twice as long. The HCM and finance and all that stuff was only about a year total in actual implementation time. The student runs twice as long, so it's gonna go on for quite a while. That's the other 2/3 of the iceberg, Damon, if you want to flip to the next slide, I'll just give a quick budget update here. There's nothing terribly surprising. We are in good shape. To date, we've spent, a little less than $4.5 million of the 7.9. That includes the first half of the payment for the student implementation. We paid the first half up front to get a discount on some of the services. Other than that, we're up to date. Our burn rate looks pretty good. We've just barely touched our contingency money. The ERP phase of things came out very solidly. So what's not in this report that we usually do give is we usually give an update on internal hours. That'll return in the fall when we're ramping up for student again. You'll start seeing those numbers again. But for right now, the dollars look good. I feel pretty confident walking into this next phase of things that we have the money we need to, get through the project. So I think we're in good shape. And the next slide is just, a worksheet if you care to look at it. But
All right. Anything else, Brant?
no, any other questions I can answer for anyone? All right. Thank you very much.
Carol, if I could just say, Carol, if I could just say a word. First of all, Rob and Christian, thank you for your involvement with us. We appreciate the partnership we have with both of you. And Brant, I'm sure when you put together the timeline for this project, you predicted that it would be in the middle of a pandemic, that we would have the campuses closed. And we just want to say congratulations on getting us to this point, keeping us on schedule, keeping us under budget. And we appreciate your leadership very much. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And yes, it was
Hear,
all
hear.
it was all part of the plan. Just
Okay, so we're going to move on to enrollment trends for 2021 with Dr. Callaway.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Let's go on to the first slide. I thought it would be beneficial to start off this presentation with consideration of the current enrollment environment here at the college. I know we have some newer board members, and probably for a lot of folks, it's been a while since we've explored the topic. And some of the things I'm calling structural challenges. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So let's start by reviewing who our typical students are, some of the enrollment challenges we see with them. I'll be going into some detail about this in the ensuing slides, but as you may know, in a nutshell, many of our students are those facing challenges. They could be economic, they could be academic challenges or otherwise. We have some working adults who return for career reasons, and we have high school dual enrollment and enrichment students. What's important, I'd like you to keep in mind as we review these challenges that we face, is that most of them are not directly related to the recent pandemic. And this is why I'm calling them structural. If you like, they're part of an enrollment landscape that we're attempting to navigate. And they have been there since pre-pandemic times. So let's just keep that in your back pocket as I go through this. Let's go to the next slide. So there's a number of factors, obviously competition from other institutions being one of them, that are proving increasingly problematic. So for example, our students for whom a traditional four-year experience has historically been a significant financial burden have been increasingly drawn to four-year schools. As we know, for some, a residential experience is key. I know it's been a conversation that the college has returned to over the years about whether we should have a residential experience or not, but regardless of that, that is a draw. But more and more for others, the ability of our four-year institutions in the area to put together some very appealing financial aid packages, including those that address the living expenses, is persuasive. Let's go on. For those students who have academic challenges in their high school careers, more and more four-year institutions are providing what are called conditional acceptances and catch-up programs like summer bridge programs to get these students on track. As you may have heard, many four-year schools have also removed added academic barriers like standardized testing, like the SAT, from their application and acceptance requirements, making it much, much easier to get in. Next slide. Students who have persevered through institutional or systemic challenges, for example, our students who would be the first in their family to attend college, first-year college attendees, or those from traditionally underserved populations and find themselves the target and the focus of four-year recruitment and outreach. Let's go on. And even our working adult students that we have in the past seen populating our evening course offerings, which have really, even pre-pandemic, really dwindled into almost nothing, have been drawn to different markets, real powerhouses here. I think we've all seen the very expensive commercials that Southern New Hampshire has all over the place. And one of the things that Southern New Hampshire has is a very affordable tuition rate and extreme flexibility. They charge $320 a credit, which is extremely reasonable for a bachelor's degree. Next slide. One of the things that is potentially less problematic, less concerning to us are high school dual enrollments, high school students seeking college credit, whether it is our dual enrollment, which to us means those cohorted groups of high school students, or those students who we term high school enrichment, who are taking one-off classes with us. At least recently, what we've been hearing anecdotally is because of the pandemic, they're looking for a quote unquote normal high school experience next year. And since we've learned that many of the districts in the area are moving to a business as usual model, they're not exactly, at least anecdotally, jumping at the chance to get away from that. So this in particular is an area of focus and concern for us. We need to make sure that we maintain these relationships. Pre-pandemic, we were seeing some very good increase in this area, and we need to make sure that that trend continues. Let's move on. So let's shift a little bit and take a look at what our current pipeline profile is and some of the factors that are impacting it. I'm sure, as you know, we are heavily focused on what are called traditional college students, since 18 to 21, recently out of high school. We've seen over the last few years increasingly little interest from adult students compared to our past, and compared, frankly, with some other community colleges and their sort of bread and butter. And the great majority of our students are indeed in-county residents. Next slide. So what's happened is this traditional pipeline is not providing students as it has in the past. And recent data really tell this story. So for example, in spring 19, admissions events attracted well over 1,800 prospects to the college, a decent number. Now, skipping over, spring 20, that was right when we were shifting. That was when the pandemic was blowing up. So the events were canceled, and it was pretty chaotic. But if you look at this last spring, what we attracted was less than half that number. Again, probably impacted by the pandemic. However, applications also this past spring were down significantly. As of April, we're down a little over 11% in applications compared to 2020. And that is, by the way, over 33% down compared with 2019. Now, while it is true that these challenges were felt by many community colleges in our area, and were undoubtedly at least somewhat related to the pandemic, they do fall within what is really a long-term challenge posed by our county demographics. As you know, the K-12 pipeline in the county has diminished significantly. And while data show it should flatten out in the last few years, the facts are that there are simply many, many fewer high school graduates than in the past, that number will not be changing for the better anytime soon, and we have much increased competition for these potential students. So let's move on. So let's take a look at our competitors. As you saw on the last slides, four-year institutions are definitely competing with us. If you take a look at some of the information in this slide, even pre-pandemic, take a look at acceptance rates from local PASHE schools like Bloomsburg and Kutztown. They've increased to approaching 90% acceptance rate. What might be surprising is that we find other community colleges to be our competitors as well. Our colleagues across the river in New Jersey, they reach out with marketing campaigns to students within the state of Pennsylvania. For example, Mercer in New Jersey markets heavily in the lower part of this county. And even our peer Pennsylvania institutions develop campaigns and initiatives, and the word is to drive out of county registrations. There's numerous examples of this. Particularly egregious one is if you have been on the Newtown campus at any point when the SEPTA bus comes through, it is wrapped with a glorious wrap for Montgomery County Community College. While they may say this is accidental, it isn't. What's of particular impact to Bucks, considering the business that we typically do in the summer is so heavily weighted towards guest student enrollment, is the fact that the remote and online shift necessitated by the pandemic has led these institutions to really reconsider their place in the market. You know, if you think about it, they spent significant time and money to shift their curricula to online and virtual offerings in a manner that they never did before, most of them. And that shift is here to stay. And as we'll see, our current summer enrollment numbers show it, as do those heretofore very significant guest student applications for summer. Let's take a look at the next slide. You can see the numbers. So here you have numbers for this last spring term, which concluded, spring 21. For the entire term, we took in 55,325 credits, compared to last spring at 64,560 credits, we were down 14%. Now, you might say, well, that's just pandemic related. And the spring 19 impacted as well. Spring 19, not on there, 66,000 credits. So we're down 16% compared to the spring before. The summer one, we just started the summer one session. As many of you know, we have 3 summer sessions within the summer term. Summer one is typically has some good credit amounts. Summer 2 is a very small term, increasingly has diminished. And summer 3 is similarly typically a larger credit amount. So summer 1, we brought in 11,755 credits. And as you can see, that's down over 18%. And when you look at it, it starts to make sense when you think about what's happening with the guests. Applications overall were down over 20% as of April for summer. And guest students typically make up 60% or more of our enrollment for all summer sessions. And if you look at these applications that we've taken in, only 40%, 44%, around there, of guests make up the applications and enrollment for summer. So we're down with them. Numbers for fall are let's say nascent. The number you have up there is a snapshot as of May 26th when we put this talk together. So we were down a little over 7%. Recent numbers I have as of last night, we had 17,246 credits enrolled versus the same day last year, 18,446 credits. So that's 7% down. So it's consistent. And while we are on the front end of a very large term, fall typically, like last year, we brought in almost 66,000 credits all told in fall. So we're kind of on the front end of this. And as we'll get into these conversations more and more, I understand that the retreat about when registrations happen. The bulk of our registrations happen at the last second, unfortunately. So we are on the beginning of this. We don't really want to begin in the hole like this. So we have some time now to make this up, but the trend is clear, I think. Let's go on to the next one. So, at this point, I think it's really important that I underscore for you, though, that Bucks is doing everything that it has done traditionally, everything that is done every year, every semester, and then some to drive these enrollment figures upwards. There's significant direct phone outreach, text messaging. You've seen the presentations from Megan about the social media campaigns, mailings, search engine optimization tactics, geo-targeting, emails, you name all of that outreach effort is ongoing. It hasn't changed. And as I have and others have presented on in recent board meetings, we're in the midst of some significant retention initiatives. We talked about outreach and support to those at-risk student populations, the really successful use of the Bucks Plus platform to drive student engagement. And what I'd like to point out is with some other data, those initiatives seem to have been working. So I track what I call a student success number, which is I look at fall to fall retention, so those students who are still with us after a full academic year, those students who have graduated, and those students who have transferred. And as you know, a lot of our students want to transfer without graduating. We've worked on that, but it's what they want to do. And we consider all of those to be successful because those are the student stated goals. So when we started some of these intentional initiatives to hold on to our current students, that was starting in and around fall 16. So fall 16, that student success number was 68.2%. To fall 17, that number was 68.7%. In fall 18, that number was 70.8%. And in fall 19, the term before the pandemic, it was 71% flat. So a positive 2.8% move in the student success number, which I know doesn't seem huge, but for a college for whom retention has already been strong, that kind of movement is significant. Now, unfortunately, what happened over the pandemic is between 19 and 20, it went back down to 68.6%. Now, my hope is that that is indeed pandemic related. And once we move out of this and get back to normal operations and our students are comfortable, that we can resume, pick up where we left off. However, even with these promising results in terms of retention, I have to tell you, they are not the solution to these structural challenges. They will never make up for these numbers. Let's go on. Now, there are some immediate short-term initiatives that we're in the midst of implementing. And you know, I'd like to point out that these are new and they're things that we're trying to get going. You know, very recently, some of us took on some of these responsibilities, and we've been moving to get some things going as quickly as possible. So, for example, an easy one. We'd like to, as soon as feasible, get back to doing those in-person advising and registration events. We were unable to do them last summer for obvious reasons. Those usually drive some significant business. So as soon as we can get to that, to organize those in a safe way, staff them sufficiently, we intend to move forward with those. And I do hope that they drive some business to us. We are working on partnerships with some fairly popular college exploration platforms. There's a product, for example, called Niche, which helps capture prospects. It'll cross-market Bucks to students who perhaps have not considered us previously. These are platforms that help potential students review rankings and options with colleges, mainly four-year institutions. But what will happen is when they search for these institutions, and for example, we have articulation agreements with them, Bucks will show up as an alternative for them to start with us to save money and then to move on to this four-year institution afterwards. We are working on securing joint marketing opportunities with some major online universities, such as Southern New Hampshire, to attempt to cultivate a new pipeline of online students. And we're working on intentional and intensive outreach to students who have stopped out recently. In particular, Linda, you may be interested, where we heard you. We've reviewed what we could and could not do with the stimulus money. And what we figured what we could do is we're going to reach out to those students who were enrolled with us on or after that March declaration of emergency, because that's kind of the one of the standing criteria for eligibility for these funds, the stimulus money. The students have to have been with us when the pandemic really took effect. So, but we're going to look at those who were with us on that date or afterwards, who've stopped out, and we're going to use stimulus funds to support direct personalized outreach to them, if you like, another flavor of concierge outreach to kind of say, you know, what happened? Why did you stop? Let's try to get you back. Let's try to get you back on track and meet your goals. So that's something that we're going to start working on immediately. And hopefully that should prove fruitful, hopefully even for fall. So let's take a look at the next slide. Now, in the longer term, there's a lot of strategies we're developing, and some of these we're a lot further on than others. Now, what's nice about these strategies is they do directly address the structural challenges I've illustrated. In the main, they feature a shift in focus from that typical student that I've spoken to you about and that typical pipeline that we've talked about here, to an emphasis on non-traditional students seeking a quicker career-focused turnaround. And if you think about it, this is particularly apt considering potential needs of county employers, the county workforce, and our re-entry into a post-pandemic work world, if you will. We're also exploring our technology needs to support these enrollment and recruitment initiatives. For example, we do not have a CRM, a customer relationship management system, which is hampering the work of admissions. It's very difficult for them to keep track of contacts and sort of build their pipeline. They do it by hand. I say, you know, our recent update to that technology is a set of new billboards and some more index cards. So a CRM system would go a long way to helping them. We're developing curricular pathways that can blend credit and non-credit bearing coursework. And we are exploring ways that we might more consistently extend the reach of the college beyond the county itself. I think, as we've discussed in prior presentations and other meetings, one of the challenges we find ourselves is we're hemmed in on all sides by other institutions, and as you may have seen, they're all our competitors. So one of the things that we need to do is kind of get out of that zone as much as we can, if nothing more than to help subsidize the low cost value proposition that we have for our county students. You know, I know all of us have a very strong feeling about not increasing tuition. So one of the ways we can think about doing that is getting more out of county students to help keep our tuition costs flat. So I think these are some topics that would be fruitful for us to explore, maybe at that upcoming retreat. I know that there are going to be a lot of other solutions that we can work on together. So hopefully that should be a really good session. But in the meantime, are there any questions?
I have a question. Do we do anything with the professional staff in K through 12 in their credentials, keeping their certification updated? Because there's a mandate that they take certain courses from time to time. Do we do any offerings in that line?
I know that we have done that or have historically done that in non-credit side.
We do have courses that are Act 48 approved, Betsy, if that's.
Or do we? Okay.
We do.
That's good. Do we have a decent enrollment in those, Stephanie?
I would have to check on those numbers. We had lost our approval for a little while, several years ago. We got it back. And so I'm not sure where we are with that. I think a lot of these questions, I'm looking at the clock and I don't want to cut off questions, but Kelly is really kind of setting the stage for the retreat. So
for the retreat.
Rather than dig into a lot of detailed questions this morning, I know we have a few other things to cover.
Okay, if we could just have that for the retreat, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, we can get that.
Thank you.
Tracy?
I would also add for the retreat, when you talk about the observations, the influence of out-of-state colleges, community colleges, neighboring colleges, is there any evidence of the magnitude of that change in terms of data over a period of years? Just get some real data for us as well. I don't know whether those are just descriptive characterizations or observational observations, but can you tell us a little bit of the magnitude of change in that?
It's going to be hard, Rick, to get specific numbers about students who don't come to us.
Yeah, I'm just talking about, I mean, the characterization is there is that, New Jersey colleges and neighboring colleges. I'm curious, is that a big change? Is it a small change? Is it a small influence? Is it something that we really have to be concerned about versus just a passing observation? Kind of like, where did you draw that from?
That's drawn from observing, well, it's drawn from a couple of things. It's drawn from conversations that we have amongst our own peer affinity groups. It's drawn from observing marketing campaigns that are, inside the county. And it's drawn from aggressive pricing. I don't know that, I think, well, we'll see what you think. I think what I think is there's nothing we can do to change the fact that there are less traditional students in the pipeline for everybody. So everybody's fighting over a smaller pool. I don't think we can change the fact that they're going to compete with us and compete strongly, because it is for all of us, an existential moment.
Understood.
I think that's why I think we want to really be thinking about, well, how do we shift focus a little bit and regroup and look at some other places that perhaps they're not. And one of the numbers that we'll take a look at the retreat is, as Trustee Timby has provided, 109,000, more or less millennial aged folks in the county, and huge numbers of them with high school diplomas or some college. And what might they need, as opposed to doubling down on trying to regroup with an ever dwindling supply of 18-year-olds.
Okay, on that note, I'm gonna stop the discussion, Rick, because we are going to be covering this extensively on Tuesday, and we are running late. I will only note that Tracy sent a chat that said, Trustee Timby, that she will bring the Act 48 offerings and numbers as well as other outreach programming to K-12 to the retreat. So with that, we're going to close this committee meeting and allow Dave to move on.
Thank you, Ms. Shelley. And that was Dr. Kellaway. That was a great preview of our retreat next week, an important one where we can look at trends, we can look at enrollment, we can look at all the things that are going to be affecting us in the years ahead as a community college. So thank you for that preview, and we'll look forward to that discussion next week. The next item is just a quick audit committee update. Mr. Worsta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be very, very brief. The audit committee interviewed 3 firms, and we'll be recommending to the Board of Trustees that they engage Baker Tilly. This will be part of the agenda for the upcoming trustee board meeting in a few minutes. Thank you.
Appreciate that. And next, we'll move into the Finance Committee update. Ms. Manhurst.
She's muted.
I am sorry. Maybe after we're done Zooming, I'll get the idea of unmuting. Dennis, could I please ask you to report on the finances of the institution? Thank you.
Sure, yes. There is on the consent agenda, a fairly busy agenda this month. There is a few contract awards. There's the Apple computers as part of our annual 3-year rollover lease with the state. So both the computer equipment and the lease finance are on there. We're also removing a second. We removed one about 15 years ago, a 30,000 gallon underground tank right outside the boiler room that needs to come out of the ground. So we went and received some bids for that, and that's going to come out in the near future. We have converted to gas, and we have an above ground tank that in case we need to go back to fuel oil. So that will happen. And we do have one change order for down at the Lower Bucks campus. As they were doing the as-built drawings, the engineers were reviewing the HVAC specifications, and they've come up with that they want to increase the size of one of the units and add another unit. We were underbid on this project, plus we still have the contingency, so we can fit this in easily. There's also, as the financial auditing, the summer executive committee action, and the insurance renewal, which I'd like to talk about just for a couple minutes. And I want to share a screen here. It's such a good story over the last few years. So this is annually what we've always presented to the board. I just want to note the first page. In the first column here, last year, we approved an insurance package, which is our package policy, school leaders, umbrella, automobile, cyber, and cyber includes ransomware too, with that being a hot topic these days, our defense base, and our workers' compensation. As you see this year, we're going to look to reduce our insurance by $111,000 over last year, and a tremendous reduction. This top one, this package policy, with Gallagher, they have a number of clients. We're the only one that's down in this right now. It's a market that's up right now. The cyber market is up tremendously across the board, 100, 150, 200% increases. And we have the great story with workers' comp, which I'm going to show in a second. So here's our insurance. Back in 2015, we were at $900,000. And here we are today, 7 years later, approving $630,000. So it is a great story. And if you look at the red, and I'm going to break them out in a second, you'll see the difference. So the package policy is the blue. That's all the other non-workman's comp. Here's the way the package looks from 15 on. This is the year Gallagher took over. We had an immediate reduction. And yes, there's been a slow increase, but that's over a number of years. The biggest thing they did was they got us hooked up with Key Risk. And we were back here with what's called a modification multiplier. It's basically our insurance premium times a multiplier. We were up to 1.71 at one point. Our multiplier is under 1 right now. So, and I have a quick slide on that. So Key Risk specializes in companies, organizations like us who have runaway, out of control workers' comp. They've come in, they're at our safety committee, they're everywhere, but it's also time now to leave them. We're at the point where we could bid this out. And you can see this year's bid has come in half of what we were back in 16. It's just a tremendous story between Gallagher, Key Risk, and ourselves, how this has worked. And they've actually used it in a case study. And here's our modification factor. The premium is on a 3-year rolling average. So actually, this year is based on these 3 right here. So we still have 1 over. Now, this past year, we've had a great year because, well, we haven't been on campus either. So what's even going to happen next year? This one's going to drop off. And when this year's finalized June 30th, which we're almost assured is going to be under 1, we'll have 3 really good years in there for next year. So I think you're even looking at next year's workers' comp being a number, certainly not growing, holding flat. Hopefully we'll flatten out, around that number where we're at now. That's just a quick trip through. If anybody has any questions on that.
I want to applaud you for bringing down those costs, Dennis, and would really like to make this kind of effort sort of a cultural thing where with people in their areas of expertise, they see costs going awry and they dig into it and think of different ways to do work and different vendors to do it with, we should really we should celebrate that type of approach. So wanted to thank you, and also wanted to just verify for the consent decree, the summer action by the executive committee, is that just, help me understand what we passed the last time, that we will.
Every June, we do this for, there's no board meetings for the summer months. We may have a change order, something academically may pop up. We need to purchase for, the August session. So the executive committee approves it. We send it to all the board to see, but the executive committee has approval for that. And then it's ratified by the full board in September.
Correct. I'm just asking, didn't we approve that process a month ago, or it has to be done every June?
That was just for that month between May and June.
Got it.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dennis.
No, there's two more items, the curricular action and the Board of Trustees bylaws. I just wanted to make sure we said that before we went, but I'm sorry, Carol.
I just wanted to ask, cynic that I am, lawyer that doesn't trust insurance companies, is our coverage the same with these savings, or have we taken hits in terms of amount of coverage?
No, everything is bid basically identically along the line.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so really what we're doing is we're moving away from key risk, and Wright Insurance has written our policy the last few years. We've had no, besides cyber, we've had no incidents, no claims over X years. So CM Regent has become a big player in the Gallagher market this year. So they've jumped in with some great numbers.
Okay, thank you. Lisa Angelo's asking a question. Are the approvals for the academic programs on the consent agenda as well?
They are according to the agenda. So I guess we better know what they are, or.
There will be a presentation by Lisa at the public meeting, and then they are on the consent agenda for the public.
Okay, so we won't go into any detail. We'll just say that it's as discussed.
Well, Lisa will discuss it at the board meeting, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and one item for the board, we will likely remove the audit committee discussion from the consent agenda, and we'll handle that separately, but we will wait till the board meeting for that.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you, Ms. Manhurst. Appreciate that. And Dennis, thank you for the great work. It's great to see, as Linda said, it's great to see those numbers decrease, those expenses. And as our wonderful chair of our finance committee mentioned, we need to be looking at those practices in all of our departments, because it is a great example to follow.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
Thank you. Appreciate your leadership, Linda. And finally, I did want to, it's not on the agenda, but I did want to give Carol McNoney Ferguson an opportunity just to give us an update on the bylaws. We were looking at possibly finalizing the changes at this meeting, but that will likely be in September. And I'll let Carol give us an update on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee has met, and we looked at the bylaws with the, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that we looked at two different things also, what middle states recommended and the recommended updates. And one of the big aspects of the new bylaws is the remote in-person quorum. And Jeff is looking into that now and will be giving us some information on that. We need the entire board to look at the amended bylaws, so they will be given to you in time so you can peruse them for the meeting in September. Okay, and when you receive them via Kathy, we will also take any comments or anything that you may want to suggest in reference to the bylaws update. Okay.
Thank you for that update. Any other thing for the good of the order before we take a quick break and then head into our public meeting? If not, we'll see you back in 5 minutes, please.
Hey, Dave, it's Phil. I'm just want to let you know I'm driving, but we'll be stopping shortly. Just so you know I'm here.
Okay, thank you for that. We will get started in a minute or so, just waiting for a few additional trustees to return.
Dave? Listen, Dave, the fire department just arrived. Men are getting out of the truck. I don't know what's happening on the street, but it's right in front of the store. So if you don't hear from me again, know something happened, okay?
Carol, thank you. I appreciate that. We will certainly wish you the best. Please be safe.
And get out of your building.
Okay, good afternoon or good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the June 10th, 2021 meeting of the Bucks County Community College Board of Trustees. I will call the meeting to order and ask if you will all rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Could I please ask Kathy if she would do the roll call?
Dave Breidinger,
I'm here.
Rick Balukas,
Present.
Jim Dancy is not here. Brodus Davis,
Happy to be here.
Blake Eisenhart,
Present.
Frank Farry,
Present.
Carol Ferguson, not
President,
here. Right. Oh, okay.
I'm right this minute I'm here, okay?
Betsy Feinberg. Here. Otto Grupp.
Here.
Shams Huda.
He's here. He raised his hand.
Okay. Tom Jennings.
Here.
Bill McLean.
Here.
Linda Manhertz.
Here.
Carol Shelley.
Here, and also happy that Brodus is here.
and still worse so.
I too am happy to be here with Coach Davis.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Davis, you're a popular man today,
Yeah, that's scary.
even though Mooresville beat you in basketball, apparently. So with that, I am going to ask for approval of the minutes from our May 2021 board meeting. Is there a motion to accept those minutes as presented?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Betsy. Second, Carol, thank you. Any questions, additions, or corrections on those minutes? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. Earlier in the day, the Board of Trustees met in executive session to discuss personnel, labor relations, and real estate matters. Also, the public may comment during this meeting using the email that'll be up on the screen, publiccomment@bucks.edu. Any comments received will be shared at the end of the meeting. Thank you very much. We will move right into the chair report. First of all, I want to say a special welcome today to Dr. Felicia Ganther, who is on our meeting today. Felicia, it's great to have you with us for your first Board of Trustees meeting. And we look forward to you joining us on campus and starting your presidency on July 1st. So welcome today.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me.
Today, for my report, I want to do two things. The first one is to our faculty and staff that are retiring later this month. I want to say a special thank you on behalf of the Board of Trustees and express our thanks for all the many years of service that you have provided to our college, and particularly the incredible work that you have done with our students. We want to recognize that today. We'll have an opportunity next week on the 16th to celebrate with you in our garden tent, but we did want to acknowledge your retirements today, and we thank you for all of your dedication to our wonderful Bucks County Community College. The second thing I wanted to do today was pay a special recognition to Dr. Stephanie Shamblatt. This is Dr. Shamblatt's final Board of Trustees meeting. And I know that Stephanie, as you and I have spoken numerous times in the last month or month and a half, the end of this month is very bittersweet. It's tough to walk away from an institution like Bucks County Community College that we all on this call love, and one that you have put so much time and effort in moving us forward to this point. But it's also sweet to be able to really reap the benefits of your hard work and move into a new life of retirement. And we congratulate you for that. We do want to say to you how much we appreciate all of the work that you have done over the many decades that you have been with us. We thank you for what you have done to recruit new students, to add new buildings to our campus, to have a vision for a new technology center, advanced technology center, which is underway and looks terrific coming out of the ground. And we thank you for leaving us in great financial shape as well as you move into retirement. And while we'll have an opportunity later this month to celebrate with you, we did want to say to you today how much we want to express our gratitude to you and wish you a wonderful retirement, good health, and much happiness in the coming years. So thank you very much. With that, we will move right into the President's Report, your final President's Report this morning.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. It has been a very busy month. Things have not slowed down, certainly for me yet, 2 more weeks. But we have lots of great news to share. So let me just get right into it and talk a little bit about commencement. This year's commencement was a very special event. May 21 and 22 were special days on campus. We had our annual commencement, nurses pinning, fire school graduation, and grad fairs on all the campuses, and a new student event hosted by admissions at the Newtown campus. All events were held outdoors at the campus in a drive-in style. For those of you that were there, you know, and I think we'll get some pictures in a minute. Pulling this together took a lot of hands and brains, and we owe special thanks to the individuals on the commencement planning team. I know how much time and effort went into planning what looked like an effortless event. They contributed their various talents, and it was everyone from purchasing to social media to traffic control. And literally every event we held over the course of those 2 days went off without a hitch. And so I want to publicly thank the team that did so much, the commencement planning team. And I'm just going to say their names because they deserve it. There was a lot that went into this for what we hope will be a one-time event. Carolyn Mudgett, Christine Harvey, Dennis McCauley, Eric Gooley, Martin Snyder, Megan Smith, Rodney Altimos, Ursula Zach, Christina McGinley, Damon Honeycutt, Mark Moore, Jim Sell, Matt Cipriano, Rebecca Brudinger, Samantha Walter, and Kathy Fedorko. Now, I know most of you know all of those names or have heard those names, but they did truly an amazing job. I also want to thank all the volunteers, and we had faculty and staff volunteer on those days. They just showed up and they played a role in allowing us to celebrate despite some of the restrictions that we had in place. And it overall turned out to be just a wonderful 2 days. We had over 1,000 students earn a degree or certificate this past academic year. That number is almost exactly the same as the last 2 years. And considering we had fewer students this year, that's a great accomplishment. That means our percent went up, right? If the denominator goes down and the numerator stays the same, the percentage goes up. So students did continue their studies and they did complete. And that's a great testament to everyone at the college, how they were able to help students persevere throughout this crazy year.
Stephanie, let me, if I could, just add my thoughts on behalf of the Board of Trustees, having participated in those graduations, and many of our trustees were able to participate as well. That was probably one of the most organized events that, as you said, went off without a hitch. And the one thing that I was particularly impressed with sitting up on the stage was how perfectly aligned all the chairs were. It's as if someone took a tape measure and made sure that everything was in perfect alignment. That shows the level of detail that was put into these events. So congratulations to the entire team for a very successful graduation ceremony.
Yeah, they did an amazing job. They really did. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. And I know they do too. Moving on to other accolades. Spring is traditionally the time of year when we celebrate employee achievement for outstanding performance and contribution to the departments and to the college. This year, we will recognize the following individuals who were selected after being nominated and chosen by their peers, and we will be celebrating with them in person next week in the event tent in the gardens. But I did want to announce their names now. They already know they've won, so it's not a surprise. For our campus support recognition, we are honoring George Freeman from Security and Safety and Don Waja from Physical Plant. In the classified among our classified employees, we are recognizing Kathy Bonfig in Purchasing, Kim Breimer in Physical Plant, Denise Cobbin in Purchasing, Beth Francia in STEM, and Andrew Gottsman in the Library. And we have administrative recognitions as well. So the administrators that we're recognizing are Laura Chin in the Testing Center, Casey Grunmeyer in Admissions, Lauren Humphreys in the Academic Success Center, Maureen McCarthy in Radar, and Sarah Schaefer in our STEM department. They all did an amazing job. We have 2 special awards. We have a Faculty Above and Beyond Award, and this year that goes to Mandy Riley in counseling. I know our counseling folks did just a tremendous job with virtual counseling this year and really were there for our students. And our Inspirational Faculty Award was awarded to Kelly Sell in the Business and Innovation Department. I want to congratulate all of them and thank them for their contributions this year, many of them under very challenging circumstances. But, you know, we got through it, didn't we? The Faculty of the Future Conference, which is an annual event. It was held virtually on Friday, June 2nd, with close to 300 participants from colleges and universities around the world. This is a long-standing annual event at the college, and the last 2 years have been virtual, but people have been attending, and that's great. We had a keynote speaker named Flower Darby, co-author of Small Teaching Online, very appropriate, as well as 31 practitioner-led sessions. Attendees shared best practices and strategies for teaching and learning. I want to thank co-chairs Greg Luce and Jackie Berger for once again planning a wonderful professional development opportunity, not only for our faculty, but for faculty at other institutions as well. And it's very nice to report that the Foundation's annual Golf Classic is back on course, pun intended, and scheduled for August 9th at noon at the North Hills Country Club in Glenside. With more than half of the foursomes sold already, we look forward to reconnecting in person with our donors and supporters. Proceeds from the golf outing support special college projects and initiatives. Such past projects include simulation equipment for the nursing program and mental health first aid training. And if you're interested in playing or buying a foursome or letting others know, please contact Andrew States at foundation@bucks.edu. So we're certainly happy that the golf outing is in our early childhood education program. We recently received a $62,000 grant to continue the work of the statewide Early Childhood Education Credential Pathway Initiative at Bucks. This is in collaboration with the Public Health Management Corporation. Some of you may know it as PHMC. The grant for the scholarship demonstrates our enthusiasm for advancing the professionalism in early childhood education and for fostering partnerships to advance that goal and help early childhood education students on their credential pathway. This is a significant initiative. In addition, the Department of Social and Behavioral Sciences and Learning Resources have been awarded a grant from the PA Goals Project to redesign 3 required courses in our pre-K through 4 early education program that will incorporate open educational resources. That's a nice way of saying free textbooks. They will significantly reduce, obviously, the cost of the program, not only at Bucks, but for institutions across the state with similar programs with whom these resources will be shared. As you know, we've had a big OER initiative at Bucks for many years, and this is just another opportunity for us to continue to grow that program. The Scholarship Committee of the Rotary Club of Bristol, as you know, is a very strong supporter of Bucks, and they have awarded scholarships to 5 incoming Bucks freshmen from Bristol. A total of $6,000 was awarded to those students, and we want to thank the Rotary Club for their continued support of our students. And the library has earned the PA Forward Bronze Star certification. It indicates that the library has embraced the principles of PA Forward through specific types of programming and activities that support the 5 key literacies in a library. And those are basic literacy, information literacy, civic and social literacy, health literacy, and financial literacy. Congratulations to Monica Kuna, the library director, and the entire library staff achieving this designation. Finally, I just want to thank everyone at the college for the opportunity to have been able to work with you these last 9 years. It has been my honor and my privilege, and I will miss all of you. So with that, I will turn it over to Lisa to introduce our new interim dean in business and innovation.
Thank you, Stephanie. Greg Luce is our new interim dean for business plus innovation. Greg has an MBA from Temple University, and he comes from the faculty. He began teaching full-time in 2009 in the management marketing area of business department, and he served as the coordinator of that area as well. And as you heard, he's also co-chair of the Faculty of Future Conference. Greg is on this call now. If you want to say hi, Greg, so people know who you are, but we are thrilled to have him in that position. And I know the faculty in that department are really grateful for his leadership at this time.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I'm excited for a new challenge at Fox and leading the department forward.
Thanks, Greg.
Welcome, Greg. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Shamblatt, for that report. We will now move on to the committee reports, and we'll begin with the Academic Standards and Student and Technology Committee. Shelley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I will call on Lisa Angelo to discuss the curriculum report for 2020 to 2021.
Thank you, Carol. As you know, you can go to the next slide already. As you know, we have a cycle in which we audit all of our academic programs, typically on a 5-year cycle. Next. This year, we audited the following programs for furniture and cabinet making certificate program, accounting and taxation certificate program. Next. Medical assistant certificate program, and the medical coding and billing certificate program. Transfer degree programs of exercise science and sports management. And in the STEM department, 3 transfer programs, biology, chemistry, and engineering, as well as the historic preservation certificate. Those programs are being asked for renewal for 5 years. There's one program that we ask for a 2-year renewal. Typically, we ask for a 5-year renewal unless we know that we want to take a second look at a program sooner than that. And in this case, next. And in this case, the fine woodworking transfer program, there's plans to examine how the students in that program might better be served, perhaps with the fine as a concentration in the fine arts transfer major. So we are asking for a 2-year renewal for that program. Next. We also have some new programs that we need your approval for. Next. We have a patient care technician certificate. This is a great example of a program that in the industry members, the hospitals came to us needing, and it's also an example of a pathway from our non-credit nurses aid program into a credit certificate. Next. We also have a transfer degree program, a new AS in public health from the health sciences department. And this, as you probably are aware, there's increased interest in public health at this time. Next. We also have a health coach certificate. This is a short-term certificate that prepares people for work as either a health coach, entrepreneur, or they also work for insurance companies. Next. We also, when we do our audits, sometimes move to deactivate a program. In this case, we have one deactivation we're asking for, early childhood education certificate. These students are now better served by the degree program that we have. There is generally not a lot of work for someone with just a certificate, and there are many, many grant opportunities for students to get the degree now. And so those students are moving to that program instead of the short-term certificate. Next. So on the consent agenda, there is a motion to approve 5-year renewals for the 5 existing degree programs and 5 certificate programs, the 2-year renewal of the one degree program, and the addition of 1 new degree and 2 certificate programs, as well as the deactivation of 1 certificate program as noted. Any questions? Thank you.
The host had to remind me to unmute. Thank you, Lisa. We're going to move on to the institutional effectiveness report by Dr. Maureen McCarthy.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to share my screen. And today I'm going to share with you both some information from our institutional effectiveness report and from the recent survey of employees that we conducted this past semester. So starting with the institutional effectiveness report, I'm going to talk about a number of the key performance indicators that were selected to give us a sense of how the college is doing broadly. So we'll talk about each of these in turn. The first is fall enrollments. These are enrollments in credit programs. And as you can see, for first-time students on the left, total enrollment in the center, and total credits on the right, we have been experiencing and continue to experience a decline in enrollment. And that decline is perhaps a little bit more pronounced when we look at the fall 19 to fall 20 numbers. I would say about these numbers that we are not alone in this trend. It is being experienced broadly throughout higher ed and in community colleges. And we're kind of right in the mix with the degree of decline that we're seeing is not all that different from what everybody else is seeing. Our non-credit enrollment also is declining over the time period represented here. Unduplicated enrollment on the left is essentially a count of unique individuals. Duplicated enrollment on the right is counting enrollments in courses. So a person might be counted more than once. In both cases, we see a decline. The decline is a little bit greater in unduplicated enrollment than in duplicated enrollment when we look at the percentage decline, which indicates we do have fewer unique individuals, but they're still taking multiple courses in the non-credit programs. We looked at the ethnic and racial diversity of our credit student body. And what you see here are graphs for specific categories, looking both at across the years from fall 15 to fall 20, but then also the red bar on the right-hand side in each category is the percentage of Bucks County population. So this is important because as we serve Bucks County, we can see that our credit student population is actually more racially and ethnically diverse than the Bucks County population is. Okay. When we look instead at employee diversity, this includes both full-time and part-time employees. In this case, we have the same categories, but the red bar now indicates the proportion of our credit students are in that category. So what that tells us is a couple of things. First, our credit students are more diverse in terms of race and ethnicity than our employees are. But at the same time, we do see very slowly an increase in the racial and ethnic diversity of our employees over time, meaning that the diversity of our new hires or the group of our new hires each year is more racially and ethnically diverse than our existing employees. The survey I mentioned that we conducted this past spring did ask employees for their perceptions of the technology they have available to them for their work. And as you can see, employees are quite satisfied with the technology that they have and the way that it supports their work. So that is a good indicator. Of our two-year student success, numbers are here. If you look to the far right on the slide, that's the total success, which includes completions, transfers, and continued enrollment. The bar on the far right, the yellow bar, is the Pennsylvania benchmark. So that's for community colleges in Pennsylvania. And as you can see, our student success at the two-year point exceeds that in Pennsylvania consistently. And when we look at the specific components, our continued enrollment and transfer rates are higher than our peer institutions, and our completion rate is increasing nicely. So student success is looking very good. And similarly with student success for students who take developmental courses, math, English, and reading, we see at the two-year mark after enrollment, they are more likely to be college ready. And in the case of math and English, to have completed a college level course in those areas than at our peer institutions. So our developmental education students are doing quite well. Financial indicators. The indicators here are those that the National Association of College and University Business Offices recommends for institutions of higher education. These are also now being collected by iPads. So I'll just briefly explain each one. The primary reserve ratio on the left is an indicator of the institution's ability to conduct operations without new revenues. So it's essentially checking to see to what extent resources are sufficient and flexible enough for the operating size of the institution. So as you can see, this ratio has increased from fiscal year 16 to fiscal year 20. And we are, when I look at our peer institutions, we are right in the ballpark with our peer institutions. The net operating revenue ratio is looking at the college's ability to conduct operations using just operational revenue, essentially to operate within our means. And the value we're shooting for here is between 0.02 and 0.04. So as you can see, we're right on target with this indicator. It's increased a little bit from fiscal year 16 to 20. The return on net assets ratio is looking at the change in total net assets as a proportion of beginning net assets. So looking to see whether financial performance is supporting our institutional objectives. This has been consistently positive, as we would want for it to be. We are right on track with where we should be, particularly for fiscal year 2020 with a value of 0.04. And again, pretty consistent with our peers. Viability ratio is looking at our ability to pay off long-term debt from reserves. This has gone up a little bit from fiscal year 16 to 20, as you can see, and increased a good bit from fiscal year 19 to 20 as well. And again, we're right with our peers in terms of that value. And then on the right, the composite financial indicator is essentially a weighted sum of the other four ratios and gives a more holistic measure of an institution's financial health. So as you can see, when we compare fiscal year 16 to fiscal year 20, we're doing a little bit better. But when you compare fiscal year 19 to 20, you see a significant increase in the composite financial indicator, which is a good sign. And again, we are pretty consistent with our peer institutions in that value as well. So just key points in terms of takeaways from the key performance indicators. As at other colleges, our enrollments are declining. Our credit student body at Bucks is more diverse than our employees and more diverse than Bucks County, but the diversity of our employees is slowly increasing. Employees are satisfied with the technology and tools available to them. Our students, including our developmental education students, are really doing quite well and are more likely to be successful 2 years after enrolling than their peers at other community colleges in Pennsylvania. Our 2-year completion rate is increasing, and our composite financial indicator value increased quite a bit from fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 20. So I'm going to move in talking about the employee survey we conducted this spring. A total of 315 employees responded to the survey. And I'm just going to do a quick overview of the results. Employees broadly are familiar with the college's mission, strategic plan, and structure. They're slightly less familiar with how the mission and goals are related to planning processes. Employees are also pretty broadly familiar with ethics policies, honesty and accuracy requirements, and other policies and processes as they relate to their work activities. Most employees report participating in important conversations about how their unit operates and relates to the college's mission. They're slightly less likely to be involved in conversations about using data in decision-making. Pretty much across the board, our employees feel comfortable in their work environment and safe and secure. The data and information that employees have is useful for them in making decisions and tracking progress toward goals, but they're less likely to report that the data they have is easy to access, easy to understand, or received in time to be of use. Employees feel the college's data and information security processes are effective in maintaining confidentiality and limiting access to information. Being known by others in their department helps employees feel connected to the college, as do professional development and other activities that they find useful. Employees are less likely to report feeling connected to Bucks because others outside their department know them or because they are given time to attend college events. Having a supervisor who takes a genuine interest in their job satisfaction contributes to employees feeling respected, as well as some of the other things listed here. They're a little bit less likely to report feeling respected because they're asked for their input about improving work, whether in their own area or outside of their area of the college. Employees have a wide range of resources that help them perform their jobs well, ranging from technology to professional development to feedback from supervisors and appreciation from their colleagues. And finally, employees generally perceive that information is communicated to them in a timely and respectful way, and in ways and places where they are likely to see that information. So some of the key takeaways from the survey are employees are familiar with mission and goals, but there's room to increase familiarity with the relationship between the mission and goals and planning processes. Employees are participating in a lot of important conversations, but there's room to increase conversations about database decision-making. Again, employees report having access to data they can use, but there's room to increase ease of access, their understanding of that information, and the timeliness of it. Overall, employees perceive their workplace and the college community very positively across all of the areas addressed in the survey. There is room to encourage input from employees regarding improving both the work of their unit and the work of the college outside their unit, as well as for providing opportunities for employees from different departments to get to know one another and attend college events. So, any questions?
I just want to say it's a great deal of information, but it looks like it's really good news for where we sit right now. So I thank you for the information. Did anybody have any questions?
I have a question.
I have a question, if I may. The student success information that was presented in the first half of this, we have a comparison to other Pennsylvania community colleges. Is there any kind of a similar success rate that we can compare to the Apache schools or four-year schools? And I don't know if that's graduation rate or what that would be. And if so, what would we look like compared to that?
In terms of comparing Bucks to four-year schools,
yes,
I have not seen that data. We typically are compared to other schools that offer degree programs and certificates similar to ours, 2 years or less in length.
Yeah, I understand that. I guess I'm thinking in terms of the incredible value that students can get from their initial investment in Bucks County Community College. Their likelihood to succeed relative to their cost is much better, I believe, than if they immediately go into a 4-year school and are not prepared. And there's a higher incompletion rate from freshmen in most 4-year universities. So I don't know if there's some way to convey that objectively with data.
That's a good point, Bill. This is Stephanie. I think that's certainly, those are some data points worth looking at, particularly with related to the PASHE schools. I think we could probably find some retention data that might be able to help us make that case that, students after 2 years are very successful here at Bucks. So yeah, good point. We'll work on that.
Thank you. Other questions?
Yes, I would like to, information is very useful, and thank you for providing it. Could you share with us, having your unique point of seeing all this data, if you ruled the world, the top 3 things you would do that are kind of low-hanging fruit that you've observed as a result of your process?
Low-hanging fruit. I think that, we have continued opportunities, as I think Dr. Kellerley was talking about earlier, to turn to what we might call non-traditional student groups to increase enrollment, particularly in non-credit programs. So I think that would be one area that I think, I know we're already doing a good bit of work around. I think in terms of student success, we have some other numbers that I'm starting to look at that suggest that our certificate completion rates are really higher than the numbers that the global numbers we looked at would suggest. So I think taking advantage of that and perhaps, once we flesh those numbers out a little bit, sharing them to trumpet that success that our students are having in completing those certificate programs. So those are a couple of thoughts.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have a question. Lisa may be able to answer this too. In regard to your non-credit programs, is there any discussion or communication relative to those non-credit programs becoming credit?
So we have quite the PLA initiative going on right now. We've always had PLA, prior learning assessment, but we actually revised our process this year to remove some of the barriers from that happening very seamlessly. Yeah. And I was showing about the patient tech. That's like front loaded with already approved PLA to come in. So that is an initiative that Tracy Timby and I and Kelly are all working on to have more pathways from non-credit to credit and back without the barriers that we've had in place over the years. So yes, we are working on that.
But that's good, because I think that will add more juice to interest from my perspective.
Correct. And I think that's part of the reason that Tracy and Kelly and I are all under the same umbrella at this point, because the conversations have escalated. We all know what everyone is doing, what planning, and how can we convert that to credit and get those students interested. And it's working very well in a very short amount of time.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'd like to hear more as we go through this upcoming fall semester.
Okay, any other questions? All right, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Angelo, Dr. McCarthy, and Thank you, Ms. Shelley. We will move right into the consent agenda. All action items are on the consent agenda. If anyone would like to discuss an item, you may now request that, and the action will be removed from the consent agenda, and we will act on that separately.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
it's Phil. Could you please move the audit committee off the consent agenda so we can move on that separately?
Okay, we will do that, and we will act on that as soon as we complete the consent agenda. Thank you for that. And with that, I will ask Ms. Manhurst to review the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to move that the Board of Trustees approve the following list: contract awards, which includes Apple computer equipment, Apple computer leasing, financing, and removing the 30,000 gallon underground oil tank in the boiler room. Change orders, which include the heat pump and control for the CAT, and also the insurance renewal for 2021 to 22, and the summer action by the executive committee and the curricular actions that were previously presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All right, second by Dr. I think I heard Brodus. Thank you for that. All right. Any questions on the motion? If not, I'll indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Ms. Manhurst. We will move right into the audit committee presentation on the financial audit services. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The audit committee met in late May, and we interviewed 3 firms. The RFP for included. I'm sorry, I didn't share that screen, I don't believe, but in any event, the RFP went out to 3 firms: BBD, Baker Tilly, and Markham. As a result, and after much discussion, the committee and subsequently, I believe the Board of Trustees agreed that Baker Tilly was the best fit for our college. So I would like to make a motion to appoint Baker Tilly as the independent auditor for Bucks County Community College for a 3-year term covering fiscal year 2021, 2022, and 2023, with a 1-year option for 2024. Further, the audit committee will continue to engage with Baker Tilly to ensure the appropriate manager level oversight throughout the contract term.
Is there a second? Mr. McGlynn?
I will second that.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion?
That includes the motion that was just presented, incorporates the comments that we had in our executive session.
That is correct.
Stipulations we had in our executive session included.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the motion in the second? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Worcester. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're welcome.
And we have one final item on the agenda. First, we'll go to public comment. Dr. Shamblatt, any public comment that has come in?
I have not received any written public comment, no.
Thank you. We have one last item on the agenda, and that is the election of board officers for the 2021-2022 year. And I'm going to ask if Ms. Ferguson would give that report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Governance Committee recommends the following slate: Chair David Bredinger, Vice Chair Carol Shelley, Secretary Carol Mignoni Ferguson, Assistant Secretary Linda Manhurst, and Executive Committee Brodus Davis.
All right, thank you for that. I'm going to ask, are there any
I'll
other
second it.
are there any other nominations from the floor first? If not, I will move that the nominations be closed. So we will take a motion on that. Do I have a second to close the nominations?
Second.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to call for the vote on closing the nominations. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we now have a motion by Ms. Magnoni Ferguson and the Governance Committee to move forward with the slate as presented. Is there a second to that slate?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Much appreciated. Any questions on that motion? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. As the chair who has served during a very crazy year with lots of activity, I want to say thank you to all of you for the privilege to do this. I look forward to the coming year where hopefully things will be a little less crazy. And I'll look forward to working very closely with our new president, Dr. Felicia Ganther, as she joins us on July 1st. So thank you for that confidence. Much appreciated. With that, we will go right into any additional board comment. Is there any additional board comment today? If not, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Brodus? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful summer. We'll see many of you at our retreat and also at our celebration to say goodbye to Stephanie. So with that, have a great afternoon and we'll see all of you soon. Meeting adjourned.